immediately the woman in the society features as the problem. And if there's a problem, there has to be a solution. So when the problem is the woman, how do you solve it? The obvious solution is correct the woman, restrict the woman, tell her what to do. Sit like this, stand like this, smile like this, don't do that, don't do this, don't go out late in the night, don't wear skimpy clothes, don't show your face, cover it with a veil. There are lots of restrictions that got imposed.
A very warm welcome to the next episode of Ink and Insight. I'm extremely privileged and very happy to welcome a celebrated Indian author, Koral DasGupta. Koral is an author, an entrepreneur. She is a professor and a painter. She has published a range of books from academic nonfiction to relationship dramas, having published widely with West End Books, Niyogi Publishers, and Rupa. Her books are discussed among range of international universities, from University of Harvard to Columbia University to University of Pennsylvania, University of Chicago. Recently, she has also written Sati series, fictional work on Ahilya, Mandodari, Tara, Kunti, and Draupadi. Ahilya was shortlisted for Author Awards, which is the Best Fiction and Popular Choice categories in 2021. And Kunti is also shortlisted for the Valley of Words Awards in the Dehradun Literary Festival in 2022. Koral, I'm extremely happy and privileged to welcome you in my program Ink and Insights. I mean, this is a Nepali podcast, and my viewers would be very happy to listen from you. So really welcome to my show, Koral.
Thank you so much, Samir. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Let me begin by asking, the first question, Koral. How did you start your writing as a career? I mean, how is it possible for you to be a professor, an author, and a painter at the same time?
Samir, one life, whatever you want, you should try to do and fulfill your wishes. I have a lot more whims and fancies to become in life. I wanted to be a dancer as well. I wanted to be a sculptor as well. So being a writer, I think, is that way out where you cut yourself every kind of world that you want for yourself. So my first book happened by chance. It was academic nonfiction, and after that, my second book was a fiction with a sculptor as a protagonist. My third book was another fiction. It was a love triangle between Bharatanatyam dancers. Fourth book was a graphic artist. So I think शौक पूरा करने आए थे वही कर रहे हैं.
Coral, you have written a range of books. I mean, I would be more interested to get started with the one you wrote on about Saruk Khan, right? So, Power of a Common Man. And it's a very interesting, thing to look into the actor who's been consistently remained at the top for such a long period of time. I mean, what is the process of, I mean, how was it possible for him to retain at the top for such a long time?
Samir, this was one book which I wrote when I was pregnant with my son, and I was teaching management in a college then, and when my subject was consumer behavior, and consumer behavior doesn't study the behavior of the consumer. It is about the consumer's lifestyle within which you identify that gap where your product can sink in. When you take it, you actually create the need of that product in the consumer's life cycle without him realizing that there is something that has come as a foreign element and caused a change. Rather, the person feels that his or her life has become easier or better, and perceives the change in a positive way, as in something like some dream has fulfilled or some good thing has happened, something like that. So when I was teaching and I was a very young lecturer, I realized that I have to bring something extra to the table for my students, because by then consumer behavior as a specialization is taken up only in the second year, and by then the students had already studied a lot of Kellogg's and a lot of Cadbury's and all the kind of case studies that you can think of, business case studies. So they are trying to understand the subject, or they would love to understand their subjects with a new viewpoint, because they are already bored of the Britannias and Kellogg's. So I introduced Bollywood in the classroom because cinema is everybody's interest. So we began with case studies like, why Salman Khan such. We graduated into other such topics, and in due course of time, I was writing down, because a lot of these kind of discussions are very very creative, as you can understand, and a lot of things used to happen impromptu in class. I was noting down the stuff that I discussed in class later and also trying to validate it as per certain reports and trying to understand whether the hypothesis that I floated in class made sense. And eventually I realized that they were becoming chapters of a consumer behavior reference book with Shah Rukh Khan as a case study. Because there are lots of things that he has done very consciously, which acted in his favor. He has learned from his failures immensely, and he knows how to flip the story. And he does that. Sometimes he does it with humor, sometimes he does it with technology, sometimes he does it with the wit of the moment. And there are no brand can become this huge unless there is an external factor. Cannot be explained. Such behaviors cannot be explained. That why did it happen with you? You can call it God's blessing. You can call it something that is a fantastic element of nature, or you can call it luck. So those factors, identifying those factors were also important, because these factors in some way or the other happen in everybody's life, but in some lives they fall in place in a way that they kind of combine. It's like a chemical reaction. They combine with the external factors, they combine with the human response of that particular era, they combine with a lot of like-minded people who suddenly come together to create something very concrete. And that is what happened with Mr. Khan. So it was a very fascinating study. And till then, before writing this book, I had viewed Mr. Khan just as a fan, as a person who only appreciates. And this book allowed me to look at him as a researcher. I had to keep my fan aspect aside and concentrate on him more as a researcher, as a person who deals with numbers and facts, and also establish certain
Mhm.
behaviors which were mine as well as many others, and try to understand the reason why things happened the way they happened.
And Koral, did you ever get a chance to meet and meet Saruk Khan, or did he ever had a chance to read your work?
Yeah, he had tweeted about the book. I didn't meet him, but I had sent him the book. Uh, Even during the phase of writing the book, my publisher, Westland, had asked me whether we should try to meet, but that was better avoided because I was writing the consumer's perspective. And had I met him and had there been any kind of intervention, the book would have been biased. So at that time, I was not ready to take any kind of intervention from Mr. Khan's office. So I didn't reach out during the writing of the book. But later, when I had sent him the book, he had tweeted about it. So that is my only personal interaction.
Koral, now I'd like to talk something about the Sati series that you have come up with. Kunti and Draupadi are some of the two characters very popular in Nepal as well. Mahabharata is widely read, even Ramayana is read. I want to talk about bit less known character like Tara and Ahilya. These protagonists, these female characters, seems to embodies so many qualities, but somehow when in the popular mainstream media and all, these characters are looked upon kind of character. And why did you feel, let me begin by asking, why did you feel that there's a need to write or rewrite a book on these characters?
Say that Panch Kanya means five virgins, and I wanted to understand that why they were called five virgins, because in Panch Kanya they have named. We may not know enough about Ahalya and Mandodari and Tara, but we know enough about Kunti and Draupadi. So why would they be called virgins? And that, of course, drilled this idea into my head that for years we have been subjected to lots of political discourses on women's bodies. Women's body is a center or focal center of discussion where women are told how to behave, how to do, what to do, how to conduct themselves, all revolving around that. And the purity of the woman is spoken about a lot, and that becomes a very important thing in religious contexts, in social contexts, in every context. Religious context being the primary driving force behind this particular idea. And here I see our ancient spiritual tales, which is calling Draupadi and Kunti a virgin. And that brings to me the idea that probably our ancient spiritual texts are not judging a woman in terms of what she has done with her body. It is trying to understand the decisions of the woman, which uh, gives her that pure status. And it is the purity of the mind, the purity of intention, the purity of willingness, determination, courage, leadership, most importantly. So, when you think from that perspective, the entire story flips. And we actually get to see why they're called Mahasati, which is the most pure one, or why they are called Panchkanya. And if I have to explain this particular term, Panchkanya, or five virgins, in today's context, trying to reflect to that purity aspect, then you can say that there's a lot of noise on social media which is constantly trying to tell you what is the right thing to do, and which is constantly being abusive, being showing a lot of madness. And in spite of that, if you can keep yourself untouched with all those factors that are externally trying to influence you, if you continue to be untouched with those, untouched by those, and carry on with the journey that is yours, the purpose that you have come to serve, and follow it up with grit, because there will be a lot of struggles on the way. That is our purity. That is the untouched status that it's talking about. And the stories of Panchkanya, though here we have five women who are the protagonists, who are being called the Panch Kanya. These stories are not restricted to impart lessons of leadership only to women. These stories apply to men as well, uh, if they intend to understand the feminine leadership from Indian mythology.
Right, it's a very interesting choral that you laid out about the way that you explained about these characters. I mean, so there's always this perception of a larger society about these feminine character, and there's some other implied intention and meaning that's kind of been portrayed by the spiritual text. So this balance, I mean, the fundamental the problem, I guess, lies in understanding this and to bridge this balance. So there's sort of lack in terms of understanding our text really well, isn't it?
Yes, Samir. You see, the text, our ancient texts, especially the epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, these are spiritual literature, right? And these are written by great sages who were great philosophers who were telling us certain stories in order to convey the meaning of life under the pretext of certain characters, using certain characters. But as the texts have traveled across many centuries of, which was pretty obvious because the original texts were written in Sanskrit, and in due course of time, Sanskrit as a language lost its relevance because it was very, very difficult for common people to learn, adapt, and follow and practice in regular. So, with Sanskrit losing relevance, a lot of meanings also changed, especially in the stories where each and every character, each and every event is a metaphor, telling you certain things about life, using those characters, using those events as metaphors or and conveying certain life philosophies, life wisdom. Now, with the language simplification, a lot of those philosophies got stripped of a lot of those philosophical annotations. Now, along with the language translations, which were numerous in a country like India, then there's Nepal, then there are many other countries where the translations have happened. And it is not only literary translations, there are many other forms of translations, media translations. So, with those, the stories constantly got stripped of their inherent philosophy and they started getting viewed only as stories. So, for one person who is hearing, it is a very simple story that Rama is born, Rama goes to the forest, Rama gets trained, Rama gets married, Rama goes to forest after being exiled, and Rama's wife gets abducted, and Rama fights Ravan. The story is obviously not as simple as this, but the story comes across as this. And what adds to this is the fact that Hindu philosophy uses a lot of devas and devis and the idea of divinity. Hindu religion, the moment you transform philosophy into religion, and Hinduism primarily was a philosophy from which the religion has stemmed out. It is not the other way around. It is not that religion came first and the philosophy came later. It was the philosophy that came first and religion came later. So, uh, when it comes to religion, there's a lot of rituals, there are a lot of understanding of gods and goddesses in a particular, hierarchical method. There was the need of, trying to put to perspective certain things so that certain religious messages could be passed, and people are told how to do things, how to love God, how to adore God, how to worship God, and all those things that come with religion. Now, with religion, the keepers of religion or the priests came to the forefront. Along with the priests, the keeper of the nation or the countries or the Kshatriyas and the ruler castes, they also came to the forefront. So, with these complications, the stories took a completely different shape. So, in a society where there is the rule of the patriarchy, and they want women to behave in a particular way, they want women to be seen in a particular way. They want certain roles and responsibilities specifically for women, and certain roles and responsibilities and liberties, especially for men. That is where they again go back to this religious section of the text And they explain the texts in a way where they show God, God's world, and men in God's world, and women in God's world. And then they explain the stories in a way that, you see, women have done foolish things, and because of their foolishness, something or the other has gone wrong. And since something or the other has gone wrong, there were great wars and people died. So it is women's foolishness that caused all of these. And so immediately the woman in the society features as the problem. And if there's a problem, there has to be a solution. So when the problem is the woman, how do you solve it? The obvious solution is correct the woman, restrict the woman, tell her what to do. Sit like this, stand like this, smile like this, don't do that, don't do this, don't go out late in the night, don't wear skimpy clothes, don't show your face, cover it with a veil. There are lots of restrictions that got imposed. Where, if you look at India's ancient culture, there were no restrictions. Males and females were far more liberated in taking their decisions, in conducting themselves the way they wanted. So now, as an adult, I mean, as a child, when I heard the stories were enchanting, but I never stopped thinking about those. And as an adult, when I looked into the stories once again, they looked back at me with a completely different idea, a completely different ideology, where I could see women's liberation in ancient Hindu philosophy, ancient Hindu culture. And I should not call it a Hindu culture, it is the culture of India and South Asia as a whole. So I was just a little fascinated as well as angry that the way the stories were told to me across so many years made me believe that our religion, our culture, our history uh, prefers timid women, and they are trying to say that women are not capable of leadership. And here we have ancient literature which is telling something completely different, and what I had been told about these stories were completely different, and it raises some kind of discomfort that why did this happen across so many years. But I do understand that why it happened across so many years. So not that I had so much of cause in mind when I started writing the stories. I just sensed that the stories have a completely different thought behind it. The philosophy is far richer than what we have perceived them to be. So I was just telling the stories, and as I continue to write the stories, these are the things that came ahead, and I went ahead with those uh, the way the stories appeared to me. Kept writing those.
Thanks a lot, Coral. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful talking with you. I mean, really privileged to have you in my show. And thank you so much for your time, Coral. Despite your busy schedule, you became a part of my show. Thank you so much once again, Coral. Thanks a lot.